I'm running. This is all new to me, so sorry about that last minute, 1 minute thing. I think I'm filming now. So anyway, I wanted to thank you guys for joining me today in my first YouTube live video. This is kind of a new thing, so we'll see what happens. What I have set up here today is I have an 8x10 canvas and I'm going to do some plein air painting. And I have this beautiful little path that goes down and some really pretty spring summer colors, and just going to make a go of it. All right, so I don't know how this works. If you leave comments, whatever, I can answer them when I'm done. And thanks for joining. Okay, so here we go. I am working in oil paints today, and this is just a really simple setup that I have. This is a James Coulter easel down here, down below, and I can angle this down a little bit so you can see. This is my, can you see that? My palette is down here. For colors, I'm using titanium white, cadmium yellow pale, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, and phthalo green. And those are the only colors I use. And so I'm gonna get going. Just to begin this, like I mentioned earlier, I did tone the canvas a little bit, so there's just a slight tint on here. And just checking to make sure it's all working. Okay, forgive my roughness of this. I'm just trying to see how this is all going to work, because on Facebook I went live on Fridays at 1, and I'm jumping over to YouTube, so we'll see how all of this takes place. Okay, so I have just a dark mixture here of burnt sienna and ultramarine blue, and with that I'm going to just sketch in where I want my composition to go. I have my paper towels in this hand, and I don't want to put the path directly in the middle, so I think that if I have it kind of leading off, thinking about my horizon line coming down like that, and then those trees that come like this, back in there, and then I have a soft little smattering of trees in here, like that. It'll all make more sense as I get going along. I'm looking for all of the areas that are darker tones too, because those are going to help anchor in my composition. So my path will come. I still think that path is kind of right in the middle, so we'll just kind of zoom it off sort of this way. It comes around towards me. In the beginning, I always try to keep my brush strokes really loose and sort of non-committed. It'll be easier to just wipe things off as I go. And then I've got my closer bushes and things right in this area, like that. And then over here on this side of the path, I hope I'm not getting in front of the screen, I have just some different layers. And I'm going to talk about painting foliage in layers as it comes towards the viewer. And then some of the shadows under the bushes here are going to also give me some nice anchors right in this area. And that helps lead the eye into the canvas more. So this will all be green grass right in here. Bushes, some nice anchors over here. So that'll be fun, like that. I think that that's kind of simple. It kind of has this X form, and with this focus being right in the middle. All right. So now, once I get that figured out, I'm going to work from the farthest away to the foreground. And I'm switching to a little bit bigger brush. This is a size 5 flat. So I'm going to grab a bunch of white and some ultramarine blue. And I don't use a palette knife to mix them together. I'll take a dab of this and a dab of that, and I paint the two colors together just as needed. I don't do the entire pile, because you can use up so much paint in one setting. So I try to keep it a little bit at a time. Oh, for medium, I use linseed oil. I just have a little container here of linseed oil. In the beginning, I was drawing with my Gamsol, and I have this little container here with the mesh basket in the bottom. And I just bring my Gamsol out with me. So now at this point, I don't need the Gamsol anymore except to clean my brush off. So I'm using a little bit of the linseed oil to lay in my sky. Just trying to keep this passage here of blue in interesting shape. And even though I don't have very much of the sky, most of it I'm gonna try to create still that dome-like effect where it's sort of purplier, rosier at the top of the canvas, and then as it approaches the horizon, it'll get lighter and a little warmer in tone. So to do that, I will mix a little bit more white in my mixture and the tiniest little dot of phthalo green, and that has a nice effect in warming it up. Just a little bit. Might be hard to see because that shadow from my block here is casting onto the painting, but let's see. Getting a little more white in there. Really kind of want to push that effect when you do that. Alright, so that's giving me what I'm looking for. Again, as I move up into the sky, I'm cleaning my brush off and getting a little bit more of that purplier periwinkle tone. Alright. There's kind of too much of a division there, so I'm just going to soften that like that. All right, while I'm at the sky, I can just take a little bit of white and just sort of glaze in just a suggestion of a cloud. Like that. Nothing major. All right. So now I'm content with that sky. Maybe I'll do a little bit down in this passage because I'm going to paint trees in this area. And I do want some sky just sort of peeking through back there. All right. Okay, so to get those trees, and one of the reasons I picked this scene is because I liked all the different colors that I'm seeing in the trees. It's still early enough in spring so that the baby leaves have their variety. We've got like burgundies and some subtle orangey rust colors in there, so I'm gonna get some of that. Are we doing good still? All right, so I'm looking at those trees that are above the horizon and into the sky, and I see those as being yellow ochre, burnt sienna, a little bit of ultramarine blue. I don't want them to be too dark. Taking a little bit of that cadmium yellow pale, just a touch of the phthalo green. Let's see what happens. So I squint at those trees. I'm always squinting because what it does is it flattens everything out and it keeps it more unified, and I don't have to see all the little details. So I just made that mark on there and I thought that it was a little too dark, so I added more white, just a little white to it. I want these brush strokes up here to feel feathery soft, like those trees are at this time of the year. And they don't have to be perfect, but I want them to really feel like early spring trees. And then it moves over to this area. There's a little bit of a more burgundy feel of this tree. I think that that's going to look okay. As it comes around, maybe I'll put more of that down in here a little. And then I've got that other tree that's peeking up over there that's quite tall. Don't know if you probably can't see those in the video. Over here. It just helps frame in this passage a little, so I definitely want it in there. When I paint trees, I will do oh, that was pretty. I'll work in layers. I'll do just a really soft suggested layer of where the tree branches are gonna go, and the tree fuzzies. And then I'll do the trunk and the darker aspects of it. And then over the top of that, I'll layer in some more highlights. Hope everyone's having a wonderful Wednesday. It's so beautiful. I live here in New York, and it's a gorgeous day today. It's in the 80s. Really happy to be able to be out today. Okay, so as this comes down, I am altering my values a little bit. This again is just that second layer of the trees. Into this, I will add some highlights and things. I had been getting some requests to do a video on painting trees, and I know that this isn't the close-up of the video that people were requesting on painting trees and tree trunks and so forth, but I will do that. For now, I just thought I would get out and do a test run today and see what happens. Okay, so we're working this way. These trees over here are a little denser. I think that they're just further along in their springtime growth. I'm just kind of, see how those are more wispy and these are a little bit heavier. So I'm taking some ultramarine blue, some cadmium yellow, and mixing a darker passage in here. Because remember, when I laid that down, I kept this darker in here. It really helps to anchor in your painting when you can include those stronger value points. While I have that, I'm going to take some burnt sienna into that mixture of ultramarine blue, that green mixture I was using, and paint that into my shadows down here. Anything that's closer to you is going to be more. It'll have more color, more paint, more contrast, just more intense, a lot more intensity. So in that case, I have this nice, rich, dark shadows in here of the bushes as they come. It's about noon, so I'm getting overhead lighting. It's not the best to plein air paint by, but it'll be fine, it'll work. I always think that if something's a challenge, then you got to try to work with it and see what you can do. And stay hydrated. All right. Now I'm moving to a sort of a middle tone, kind of working to push some of that into the background. The key to painting a lot of foliage is not to get overwhelmed by green. You want to squint and see the variations in the different shades of green. And I'm getting these different shades of green by adding small amounts of burnt sienna or a little more yellow ochre, a little more of the yellow. You can vary by doing it like that. One of these times here, I will do a video just on mixing. Because when you paint with a really limited palette, like I have here, there's really just 5 colors, well, 6 colors out on my palette. And when there's only so few, the choices are easier. And you remember easier how you got different colors. And I like that. Anything to simplify my life is definitely a bonus. Okay, so now I'm coming back up in here, holding my brush on the side, altering brushwork to create a little bit more of those highlights that I'd mentioned before. So I have my middle tone, then I did some darker values, and now I'm adding some highlight to these passages in here, just to create a visual interest. It's not necessarily with the intent of drawing the eye to all this, but just to create an interest in painting. I also, before I forget, want to take one of my small brushes. This is not a liner, but it is a size 2 round. And I'm going to just make a darker mixture of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. And I'll just paint in, that's a little too dark. I'll paint in some of these tree trunks as I see them back in there. Looking at their unique shapes as they come out. And I'm really just delicately letting the brush fall and just sort of guiding the brush, telling it where to go as I look over there at the trees. It's one thing I love about plein air painting is just being out here in the wilderness, and the bugs flying around. I love that. All the birds. Okay. So I think, yeah, that just a few more in here. All right. So I like that. I'm even going to take, before I get too far, and scratch in. You can make things look more like trees if you just do a few little scratches like that back in there. Got some over here. All right, now over the top of that, I'm going to paint the rest of this foliage. Not to hide it completely, but to suggest that it goes back. Okay, now I'm moving forward on this side. I added a little bit more ultramarine blue and phthalo green to this. Again, squinting down at this passage in here. I'm trying to simplify, that needs to be a little darker, simplify these masses of foliage. When I look, I see it's darker. I'm not getting it dark enough. That's better. A lot of painting is trial and error and, working at it till it feels right. But it's like I've been saying, I say for so long, it really is just the act of getting out there and doing it. This is where the reward is, feeling and breathing in this moment. Okay, so, all right, moving on past that. How's this going? Great. Okay, great. So this is just a little bit different shade green. I took out some of I added a little bit more of the mixture of ultramarine blue and cad yellow pale. So there's less intensity of the phthalo green. This is my first layer of this passage. I will add more highlights over the top of that. I'm going to put some on this side too. Squinting over there, trying to look at it in terms of layers, this bright spring green. Okay, and I'm going to get some cad yellow pale and a little white in there, right into that mixture, just to pull out some more of the highlights that are on top. That's the ticket. This is the grass. And again, it's just the first layer. And I want to use these strokes that are more horizontal to suggest, it's a flatter surface down there. Goes down into the dirt too. All right, back over here. Yes, in fact, it does drive me crazy that it's moving. I guess I can hold it. I just don't want that to be in the way. pushing that a little darker back in there. Again, it's just the same mixture that I've been using with slight variations of ultramarine blue, a little more yellow ochre just to warm things up. Remember, as things get closer to you, they get a lot warmer. And of course, as things go farther away, they get cooler because there's just more sky and atmosphere in between us and that over there. I'm going to just switch brushes now and just going to lay down this path. And to do that, I'm mixing yellow ochre with what I had on my palette already mixed up for the sky, because I think that that light blue and white, maybe a little bit of cadmium yellow pale into that. And you always can just put a stroke down, see how it looks. If you don't like it, keep working on it. That to me is a little too yellowy, so I'm going to add a little more white and blue to that. Yeah, I think that's better. I'm just laying down sort of a broad swath of dirt, and then I will paint green into that. So I'm looking at it as it goes back. Love this heat. I was in this area over the winter doing a painting demo, and it was 28 degrees. I was demonstrating how to paint in the cold, winter, and snow, painting snow. That was exciting. It's much more pleasant when it's warmer out. Okay, so I have a little bit of a gray here, and I'm painting just some gray along the edge of this path, because when I look over there I see this really pretty kind of gray tone. I made that with burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, which kind of gives it a violet color, because the burnt sienna is actually in the red family. So I am gonna mix a real nice gray through burnt sienna and ultramarine blue and a little white. I'm just thinking about the pebbles and things. Remember, it's closer to me, so I can do a little bit more detail here. And then as it goes off, it's a lot more suggestive. Okay, I like that. I like where that's going. All right, now I'm going to paint some highlights on here. I'm still going to use this smaller brush. It's a size 3 filbert. And I just took some phthalo green and some cadmium yellow just to pop in some of these really brilliant passages up front, because I want that strong contrast right in here. And I paint in a style that's called impressionistic. It's typically thicker paint, and I don't paint photorealist. Even though a lot of my works are pretty detailed, when I do landscapes especially, I want them to feel more fresh and alive, like the immediacy of the moment. And I like that. So this color, this really pretty Kelly green color, is phthalo green and ultramarine blue. And there's a little bit of yellow that was on my brush that's contributing to that. Again, this is the grass. I'm going to flick some of that up into the shadow over here. A little bit down in here. All right, liking that. I think it feels fun. Kind of allowing my brush strokes to show the earth sort of going down into the path. To put a little bit more of this violet tone in the path right down here, just to lead you in better. All right, now I'm going to work on the highlights of the things that are up close to us. So when I squint at this scene, I see a lot of this spring greeny color that I had going up, and I'll put a little white into that too. And you want to alter your shade of green every now and then just so it doesn't have that stagnant look of all over the whole canvas, the same color. So I just added a little bit of yellow to that. Sometimes I'll add or pick up a little bit more white, or I'll pick up a little bit of yellow ochre just to change it up. Same on this side. I see these longer branch pieces coming out like that. They're kind of hanging over these shadows to create that effect, like. Looking at that, I don't want it to get out of hand. Sometimes it's easy to do. If a little is good, a lot's better. So I am going to just quiet down this passage a little bit more. Still want some of that intensity happening, just a little. As it goes up. All right, now when I look over there, there's some wisteria hanging down, and I really want to capture some of that into my picture because it adds a really interesting focal element. So that, I'm just taking the white, titanium white, and I am going to neutralize it with a teeny bit of yellow ochre, just so it's not white, white, white. And when I look around, I see that there's a passage back here. Got to clean my brush off because it's picking up a lot of that green. This forest here is just full of wisteria all over the place. It's beautiful. It's purple and white. It just sort of hangs from the trees like this. Here. And I see some hanging from this passage here. That might be a little too long. We'll shorten it. Into this, I'll add some purple wisteria too. I like how that helps draw the eye down this way. I think that makes it kind of interesting. There's not much over on this side. I'm just putting a little bit to help balance that, so I am going to clean my brush off and take some alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue, and I'm mixing it in with a little bit of that white and yellow ochre. The yellow ochre will help to neutralize that purple that I just made, so it's not as vibrant and intense. And then I'll paint some wisteria over here. It's important to go down and clean your brush off often, otherwise it will pick up the green and start to get muddy. In Impressionist painting, you want the cleanness of the brush strokes. It has that clarity and beauty that we're looking for. I'm going to make this purple a little bit more vibrant because I don't know that you guys can see any of what I'm doing on the camera. So let's see if this might help. I don't know. Some down here. Nope. Little more, I'm getting some more alizarin crimson, and that will make it a little bit more magenta. Hopefully it'll stand out better. I'll put some over here. It's one of those situations where I really want to be careful not to overdo it because it's kind of fun, And it's easy to say, woo, I went way too far. So I want to just keep it suggested, always taking in the whole thing and seeing what might need more, what might need less, where do we go, things like that. This is a very overwhelming scene with a lot of information, but really a lot of plein air is like that, and it's knowing what to leave out and what to put in that makes an interesting painting. Put some over here, just a little bit. All right, well, I think that that's sufficient for this first demo here on YouTube. I wanted to thank you for joining me and for logging in to my very first session on YouTube. So I'm going to share this on Facebook and get some feedback. Hopefully I'll be able to be back on Friday at a consistent time, and we'll see what happens. Thanks so much, you guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye-bye.